Hi, this is Mary with Life on Purpose, and today I want to talk to you about something that I think is pretty common. It's something that I've done for years, and it's now an approach to food that I no longer use, and it feels great. So I want to share that with you. I want to talk to you about playing games with food. And I think the reason why lots of us play games with food is that it comes out of the tension of what we want food to be and what food actually is. So I want to encourage you though and just tell you, spoiler alert at the very beginning, there's no worries because this is all reworkable. Let's get really clear about what I mean by playing games with food. What exactly am I talking about? So this would be a time when we're consuming anything that we know is non-health supportive. And we can list all day long what those foods are. I'm going to share just a few with you. It's when we're eating stuff that kind of internally we've got our fingers crossed and we just hope that it works out okay. We're eating salty, sugary, processed foods. We're drinking beverages like sodas, teas, juices, energy drinks, fancy coffee shop beverages. Really, we're just kind of eating for pleasure, or we're overeating. We're not necessarily just satisfying that actual need for food that our body has as a human being. So I would suggest that you are playing a game with food anytime you skip a meal or two, or you significantly curb your intake surrounding the offset of indulgence, just to kind of make it work. So I would call that playing a game. So for example, it would be years ago, I had a habit of lots of times on a Sunday baking a cake. I was just enjoying the weekend, enjoying having some space from what was kind of typical. So I'd bake a cake. And in order to get away with having a piece of this cake and probably a side accompanying cup of sugary coffee, I would really reduce my portion sizes that day, or I would skip a meal altogether to make room for this cake. I didn't want it to show up on my waistline, and I was giving no thought whatsoever to what it was doing to me internally. So that definitely was playing a game with food. It can happen also whenever we're utilizing the pleasure of food as a way of receiving a life pick-me-up. We're looking for food to be a reward, a source of comfort, or really we're just kind of acting out, rebelling against a variety of norms. So when we're at risk of playing games with food is anytime we lack a plan for food. This would be like going on a trip and not calling the credit card company to let them know that we're going to be traveling, or stopping by the bank to pull out some cash, putting no clothing in a suitcase of any kind. You're not resourced and you're going to run into trouble. So every day we know we're going to get hungry and we're going to run out of energy, but we've made no plan, no allowance whatsoever for what we're going to do. Then the tricky thing there is, sure, there are restaurants everywhere. There are convenience stores everywhere. So of course we know we can get food, but what's tough is that now the tired and hungry version of ourselves is the one making the decisions. And that is not what you want. You want to be choosing for yourself well before it's time to need that food. So really, what is the big deal? What's the impact of playing games with food? It actually moves us further away from our goals, and it decreases our ability to achieve our goals. Playing games with food can keep us stuck in a craving cycle. So we've increased the expectation for the pleasure center of our brain. We've been lighting it up over and over with low nutrient dense foods. And so now that pleasure center is going to start talking to us, and it wants a hit. Like so many other drugs that you can think of. So the low nutrient dense diet puts us on a path of perpetual weight gain. And then that weight gain is hard on us physically. It can render us literally in pain in our knees, our ankle, our back. And then it can create confidence issues when that weight gain starts to pile up. Then we start adapting compensating behaviors because we don't totally recognize ourselves and it's hard to show up as ourselves. So this, snowball is kind of picking up speed. It can often also mean that you're putting yourself on a disease trajectory path. And I mean diseases like heart disease, having a stroke, being at risk for obesity or type 2 diabetes becomes so much greater when we're playing games with food. So it's not just about, being really comfortable in your favorite pair of jeans. It can have such a greater impact than that. When we deprive ourselves and then we kind of offset it with indulgence, it keeps us in that cycle of starvation. And then our repair processes in the body are impeded. Our stamina is decreased. The energy is just down. So it makes doing everything in life harder. When we think about just ordering that really yummy plate of whatever at the restaurant, it just seems like, oh, it's just a momentary decision, but there's a domino effect from that. And now we've limited our resources to solve the problem. And all of this can leave us feeling trapped. The fatigue cycle is perpetual, and then we're on this pleasure chasing loop, and it can be hard to break those, but it's not impossible. So what do we do about it? The answer is relatively simple to say, and it can be gained through some incremental steps. Each one of us needs to own our own health journey. No one is going to solve this for you. And it might feel inconvenient right now, and that's just because it's not really a habit that you're into. But if we own our own health journey, we can get there, just one little step at a time. All of us can make progress in whatever direction we want to go with incremental, consistent changes. So I want to suggest that time is a great place for you to start. None of us make time. We talk about making time for a committee or making time for a holiday or a weekend event. That's not a thing. We all make decisions about how we spend our time. We don't make time. Each one of us has the same 24 hours in any given day, and we spend that resource according to our priorities. We might feel trapped, but we're not quite as trapped as we think we are. So get really clear on your priorities. And I would suggest that watching this video says something really great about you. It means that your health is important to you. It means that learning how to get out of this loop is a priority, which means you can, by the way. Just the very fact that you want to means that you can. So check out your calendar and see if there are appointments, activities, commitments of any kind that are not in line with your priorities. If so, give notice, take those things off your calendar, and then redirect that time to the areas that you value. And your health would be one of those areas. Up next, introduce whole foods. Whole foods can seem a little overwhelming, intimidating. That's that, really colorful section of the grocery store that you likely first hit when you walk in. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not suggesting that you go from shopping in the frozen food section or grabbing DoorDash or drive-through. I'm not suggesting that you would go from doing that as your total habit to now filling your grocery cart with all produce. No, that's too much. So what I want you to do is head to the grocery store and get one or two colorful veggies. Maybe it's something that you've had in the past that you've enjoyed. Maybe it's something brand new to you, but do a little Google or get on YouTube, get on Pinterest, and find a recipe to learn how to prepare these things. Don't go crazy. Just start with one or two whole foods and work on introducing them into your diet. You're going to see what happens when you do that. It's going to be cool. Next, add in protein. Always add in protein. This is a great way to stay satiated. That means hunger just takes a lot longer to show up. This also means that temptation is not as strong for you. For sure, if you know that you're going to have a sweet offered to you, like if you're going to a party, whatever else it might be where you know there might be sweets, be sure to have a protein heavy meal or snack, whatever is appropriate for you given the situation. It will allow you to just be a lot less interested in that sweet when it's offered to you. I'm not saying be non-social, don't have any. You certainly can pass it up altogether, but it would allow you to have a much smaller portion, not care as much while you're eating it. You register that it's sweet, but it just doesn't mean that much to you. And as you're hearing me say that right now, you might be thinking, that's not how it works. Sweets are powerful, but there is a way of actually altering your craving cycle so that sweets don't mean as much to you. And you're hearing some of the ways to do that right now. Next would be begin to drink water. And if you're drinking water, awesome, drink more water. I would recommend that you get to a point where as a baseline every day, you're having half of your body weight in ounces in water. I would recommend you start your day each morning with a good amount of water. So I like to drink a 16-ounce glass of water right after getting out of bed and getting dressed in the morning. Have a glass of water and drink it pretty quickly. Don't work on sipping it, like actually drink the water and then refill your cup on your way to whatever it is that you're going to do. Make it easy to drink water. So keep the container handy. Be sure you know what kind of a container you like to drink from. Different materials can impact us differently. Metal doesn't work very well for me. I'm good with glass or like a heavy recyclable plastic bottle. That works well for me too. And you can add things into your water to make it a little bit more flavorful, a little more appealing. Think about lemon, cucumber slices, apple, berries in the bottom. It can just flavor the water a little bit. And you can refill that same water glass or pitcher with the same add-ins multiple times before you have to change that out, which is great. And lastly, discover the temperature that's good for you. Some of us are more cold adverse. For me, if the water's too warm, it kind of trips my gag reflex. So water's got to be a little cool, but also throughout the different times of the year, that changes too. So pay attention to what works for you and then just make it easy to drink water. And now, if you really want to splurge, I'm going to encourage you to find a friend, not to take that friend down with you, but rather to make it more fun, to share it together with someone. And really, you'll be less inclined to indulge when you're having a sweet treat with a buddy. There's less to go around. And I want to encourage you to take smaller bites of whatever it is you're having, pie, cake, whatever it might be, sundae, whatever. Take smaller bites because it doesn't take a whole lot of the item for you to register the flavor in your palate. You don't need a huge mouthful of something to acknowledge that it tastes chocolatey or like caramel or whatever. So just take a little bite and then even consider telling the person that you're with what you're up to. And let them know why you're wanting to share this with them, the path that you're on. It could be a good thing, and you might even inspire them to make a shift and get off the game board, playing games with food for them too. Lastly, but not at all least, find some good non-food rewards. It doesn't have to break the bank to do this, and I want you to keep these rewards easily accessible. So think about a new book that you've been looking forward to reading. Could be Audible, could be actually a book. A new tea variety. Maybe it's that cozy sweater that you're looking forward to enjoying for the winter. A new hat. It doesn't need to cost a lot, but reward yourself when you accomplish something at work, when you've organized that closet. Go ahead and treat yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be with food. It could also be with a nap. It could be with a bubble bath, something that has nothing to do with calories. Okay, so we've covered when we're playing games with food, why we might be inclined to play games with food, and then what you can do about it to get off the game board. So I want you to just pick one. I've recommended a number of strategies here, and I want you to just pick one. Don't toy with overwhelm. Don't toy with, well, I can't do all that stuff, so I'm not going to do any of it. That's not what I'm saying. Just pick one. So think about looking at your calendar, looking at your time, adding in those whole foods, just one or two to start. Introduce more protein. Make sure that you're not vulnerable when you head into a social situation or even heading home to be alone. Make sure you have a nice hearty meal so that the whatever it is that's in the cupboard or freezer or fridge doesn't call out to you so strongly. Drink more water, and we talked about how to do it. Get a friend to share the treat with you so that you're not all by yourself. And then lastly, find some really enjoyable non-food rewards. Guys, you can do this just one thing at a time. And I did say in this video that I want you to own your health trajectory. I've seen people get sick, and it is no fun. Being sick just sucks all the oxygen out of the room. And lots of times it doesn't have to be that way. Choices that we make can have a massive impact on the trajectory of our health and our energy. So I know you can do this. Just pick one. I'd love to hear what you're picking. Maybe you can drop me a comment below. I'll be excited to see what you're doing. I know you guys can quit playing games with food. For the most part, I've been able to do this, and it is such a more enjoyable way to live. So I know you can do it. I believe in you, and that's all for now.